My name is Mary Donner. I'm chairman for the 2050 Regional Plan. I'm sorry, this is as loud as I can talk. I
Okay,
have
let's
tried.
be quiet, the meeting is starting.
Yeah, I tried today. When I can't anymore, Charlie will take over for me. He's the vice chair. And I'm going to call this public hearing to order at 6:10 this evening. And I am going to ask each of our commissioners to introduce themselves, and that will be our roll call. So to my left.
Hi, I'm Randy Zaleski. I'm from Crystal Lake and been on the commission for 2 years.
There you go.
Carolyn Campbell, County Board Member, District 3, Commission Liaison.
Charlie Eldridge, I'm from Richmond, a member of the board, vice chairman.
I'm Mary Donner. I live next door, and I'm chairman.
At the jail?
No, wrong direction.
Wrong direction.
Wrong direction. I'm with all the old people back over there at Maples. Okay?
I'm Ellie Salazar. I'm from Woodstock.
Nancy Glissman from Huntley.
I'm Michelle Phineas. I'm from Crystal Lake.
Patricia Grant from Bull Valley, and my background is in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
I'm Perry Moy, and I'm from McHenry.
TJ Johnson. I'm from Cary.
Sorry? And I'm Garrett Anderson from Woodstock.
And Garrett, we'll have to leave at about 6:30, so we need
Probably
to
a little
be.
earlier than that. Could be somewhere at 6:30, so. Sorry.
I'll do the best I can. Okay, so with that roll call, the purpose of this public hearing is to hear comments from the public on the draft 2050 comprehensive plan. The plan was drafted by the planning consultant firm Halsey-Hill and Levine. John Halsey-Hill will be presenting today at the direction of County Board and by working closely with the Regional Plan Commission to analyze data, develop policy, and plan for the future of all McHenry County. We will begin tonight with a presentation from John Halsey-Hill of Halsey-Hill and Levine Associates. Mr. Halsey-Hill will give an overview of the draft plan for background. Once Mr. Halsey-Hill has completed his presentation, you will have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments. Anyone who wishes to speak or ask a question must be sworn in. For the record, you will need to state your name and address before asking your question or making your comment. Please raise your hand and wait for me to recognize you before speaking. There will be a 3-minute limit to your comments. Anyone who wishes to speak or ask a question must be sworn in. Okay, we can do that all at one time, or as you come in, you can say.
Do it all at once.
Let's do it all at once. All of you who care to speak or think you will, please raise your hand now. Okay, are you willing to, are you willing? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. I will swear to all speakers in at, I just did that. If you think you have questions or comments, please raise your hand. Oh my God, I think I memorized it. Mr. Halsey-Hill, you have the floor. Thank you.
We've got a little technical issue trying to get the presentation up right now.
Okay.
Could say the pledge.
We can do the Pledge of Allegiance if we all want to stand, please. I don't have a flag to work with, but you know what one looks like. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
I don't think we'll have the presentation right now. We still have, it hasn't come through just yet.
Okay, and I hesitate to move forward with comments until Mr. Halsey-Hill has had a chance to make his presentation. Because we have received some questions and some comments previously that needed some kind of a response. And I even spent some time today with somebody explaining two sections of the of the plan. And I said, did you read the plan? I think it's on page something or other. And he said, no, he had not, which is fine. But he knew, well, there's ways to go about it. So if you want to hear, if this blows out, and Mr. Hausiel has to do this from memory as well, we can always look at our meeting notes from the last meeting or the meeting before, because they were pretty much the same thing, and went through all of the different components and what they mean and how they mean. So it's not that it's totally lost, but we'd have to look at it a different way. I hope you all get a chance to, but it is on the internet, the whole thing, and all of our meetings. Since January of last year, we've been meeting once a month to make sure that we have information, that we have, oh, you did it on purpose. That's me.
What I suggested is if they're having trouble loading up the presentation, is just to pull up the PDF of the plan, which is on the county's website, and I can walk through that.
That's fine.
And that'll be the document everybody has seen anyway, so.
Yes. Since January of 2022, no, 2023. Started in 2022.
Yes.
Starting in January of 2023, we started meeting once a month instead of once a quarter. We've had informational meetings where we've had input from the Housing Authority. We've had input from a number of different areas on solar farms from Mike Tryon. We've had different speakers at our meetings so that we could make sure that everybody was as well versed as they could be, as we all could be, to learn more about what we're talking about and come up with a plan. The last couple of meetings, we've actually gone through piece by piece and decided what needs to stay, what needs to go, and how we want to do it. I want to thank Hausiel and Levine for what I believe is a very good product. We wanted to make sure that people, the general public, can understand what's in this project. So there's an appendix that says, okay, you want land use and you want to know about this, here's where you find it, and here's what it talks about. Then it also has a glossary, because there were terms that I was hearing or seeing in the documents that I didn't understand. So if I don't understand it and I'm doing this, you got to know that that everybody can't. So a word like agrivoltaic, if you don't know what it is, you can look it up in the glossary, and you'll have a better understanding when that term is used. If not, we can always get back. You can email us, or you can email the Planning and Development Department, and they can answer your questions afterwards. And there you go.
Perfect time.
Now Mr. Hausiel has the floor.
All right, it's nice to see this many people at a planning meeting, so I'm glad you guys see you here. Recognize some of the faces from previous meetings that we've had. So again, my name is John Hausiel, and I'm with the firm Hausiel Levine. We were the ones selected about a year and a half ago to work with the county to develop its comprehensive plan. We are also the firm that helped with the last comprehensive plan, or the one that's currently on the books from 20 years ago or so, or 15 years ago or so. That plan, just so you know, the county did a really nice job with that. It won the state of Illinois' best comprehensive plan from the entire state of Illinois the year that was adopted. So that was a document that was put together with the help of a lot of people, and that sort of legacy of having a lot of different expertise, local subject matter experts, and a development and design team work on this is carried over this year. It's a hefty document if you've looked at it. It's a couple hundred pages. And a couple hundred pages of 11 by 17. So it's a hefty document, double-sided. So it has a ton of information in it. A little bit of background for a comprehensive plan. It's not zoning. It's not regulatory. It doesn't dictate what you can and cannot do with your property. It doesn't change any zoning on any piece of property. It's a policy document. The best way to think of a comprehensive plan is it's a foundation for decision-making. Right? When the county, say 5 years from now, is contemplating a development, or it wants to pursue state or federal funds to help preserve a wetland or a habitat area, it's got the documentation to begin to go after grant funding to help pay for a project and or restoration or conservation or infrastructure or whatever. So it establishes some of the priorities for the county, how the county can partner with the municipalities that exist within the county. But this plan does not supersede municipal or city or village planning or zoning. It governs the unincorporated areas. But a big part of that is cooperating with all the cities and villages within the county, because that's where most of the development occurs. So when a lot of the plan talks about certain types of development, a lot of that development doesn't exist within the unincorporated areas of the county. It exists within the cities and villages that already exist in the county. So what I'm going to go through and what Mary talked about is sort of an overview or an orientation to the document. It's not going to be in presentation of all 200 pages. But once we get through it to sort of get it on the record, we can then circle back and ask or answer any questions you might have. Look at whichever screen is easiest for you. I'll sort of be referencing everything that pops up here. This is the team that was pulled together to work on this with the Regional Plan Commission and the county. Housfield Levine was the lead agency. We're a firm, we're out of Chicago. We have offices in Helena, Montana, Los Angeles, San Diego, and we have people in all the offices. This is primarily staffed out of people from the Chicago office. We have expertise from several different firms that zeroed in on very sort of specific areas of comprehensive planning for the county. Geosyntec Consultants, KLOA, McGuire Gillespie Architects, Solutions in the Land. So Geosyntec and Solutions in the Land really focus on water, environmental, conservation, ag preservation, these sorts of ecosystem, ecological, environmental, and water resource components of the county, which are an important piece of who the county is and assets that need to be protected and preserved going forward. KLOA is a transportation and mobility engineering firm. We've worked with them for 20 years over a variety of different planning projects. They've been in the Chicago region for at least 3 decades doing this type of work. And then McGuire Gillespie Architects, MIA, is a firm. We worked with them to zero in on the historic preservation and historic components of the county, and there are a lot of them. We've worked with MIA, McGuire Gillespie Architects, in communities like Geneva, St. Charles, and other communities around the region that have a lot of environmental assets and want to make sure those are protected and preserved as development or other considerations take place over time. So this is the team that worked together over the last year and a half with the Regional Plan Commission to develop this. So we'll go over the process, an overview of the plan chapters, then we can talk about the next steps. The next steps at this point really is to go to the county for consideration of adoption of the plan. A little bit overview of the process. It's an 18-month process, more or less. Planning, if anybody's familiar with planning, and I don't care if you're planning a comprehensive plan for the county or your daughter's wedding next October, it doesn't matter. The planning process has to do 3 things, that's it. You have to have a firm understanding and an assessment of where you are right now today, the good, the bad, the ugly, what's working, what's not, what you have to work with. You have to determine where you want to be. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And then once you establish that, you have to figure out exactly what you have to do to get there. What you want to change, what you want to keep the same, what you want to protect, what you prioritize. But where are you right now, where do you want to go, and how do you get there? So we broke this down into 7 different steps that were undertaken over the last 18 months. Initiation, public and stakeholder engagement, existing conditions analysis, visioning, principles and land use framework, future growth scenarios, preliminary countywide plans and policies, and comprehensive plan document and adoption. So we're right now at that tail end of step 7. I'll go through the different plan chapters pretty quickly. And again, this is what the presentation is going to be about. The structure is these 13 chapters. So introduction, community profile, vision and themes, land use and development, agricultural resources, housing, economic development, transportation, water resources, green infrastructure, energy infrastructure, historic preservation, and lastly, implementation. I'm hoping you can read everything that's up there, but I'll read it off if not. If you can't see something, maybe move up a little bit or just ask a question. So I'm going to go through, again, each one of these. What I'm showing here are a couple of pages of each chapter from the document. So I'm not trying to provide any sort of summary or anything that was created outside of the document. These are actually pages from the plan document. So if you stopped by the county and looked at a hard copy, or if you looked at it online, what you're going to be seeing up here are a few different pages from each chapter from the actual document that's up for consideration. The introduction is pretty simple. It establishes the process that was undertaken, what a comprehensive plan is, what the requirements are, and sort of the foundation is for comprehensive planning in the state of Illinois. We do this all across the United States. We've probably done 33 different states and planning in them. Every state is a little bit different. Like in Connecticut, they call it a POCD, a Plan of Conservation and Development. In Illinois, they're called comprehensive plans. Some states, like California, they're called general plans. In Michigan, they're called master plans. In Colorado, they're called master plans. In Colorado, you have to address tourism because it's important to the state, so the state requires counties and cities address tourism. In South Carolina and North Carolina, you have to have a chapter called strategic investment. They want to know exactly what you're going to invest money into in the years to come. In Michigan, you have to have a thing called a zoning plan within your comprehensive plan. Sort of lays out how you begin to approach zoning over time, even though nothing gets rezoned as part of the plan. So every state is a little bit different, but this lays out what is required, the process that was undertaken, and it establishes sort of the regional location of the county. And in the state of Illinois, every state has enabling legislation that gives municipalities, cities and villages, and counties the legal authority to do a comprehensive plan. They're typically worded and written for a 20-year horizon, but they're often updated within a 10-year period to keep them more current, especially communities that change frequently or are rapidly growing. So again, it talks about what is a comprehensive plan, how it was created, and defines the planning area. And again, it's not regulatory, it's not zoning, it doesn't dictate what you can and cannot do with your property. No zoning is going to change because this gets adopted. This is a foundation for decision making is the best way to put it. All right. So if someone were to come forward and say, we're proposing this development, the county can say, well, this is what the comprehensive plan says about that. Let's think about that. Let's talk about what the plan says. It doesn't require and it doesn't dictate the county has to follow every single aspect of the plan because conditions change over time. But it is a starting point, it's a foundation for decision making to get everybody on the same page. Right? So that's what a comprehensive plan is. Next thing is community profile. This is the second chapter. And the bottom line we do a community profile is, let's say it's 7 years from now, and someone is proposing a development and market conditions have changed, development has changed, can't anticipate everything. And someone says, well, boy, what was going on 7 years ago when this plan was created? What was the market like 7 years ago when some of these policies were crafted? So you want to capture a snapshot in time. You want to capture the highlights of the county at the time the plan was developed. So people in the future can look back and say, I understand this policy because this is what the issues were at the time, right? So it's a profile of the county. We go over all the outreach that was taking place, both online and in person, and to establish the priorities that were driven. The Regional Plan Commission or the consultant team just didn't pull things out of thin air. We had a lot of outreach, both online and face-to-face. Listen to residents, listen to stakeholders, listen to business owners, listen to people that lived in the incorporated areas, people that lived in the unincorporated areas, to try to serve as a starting point for how we begin to undertake the plan. It provides a detailed overview of the demographics and market, so people know at the time, population, age, race, education, income, employment, labor shed, housing types, values, real estate markets, and then the market for residential, retail, office, and industry. And the reason we do that is it wouldn't make sense to make a recommendation for a type of land use, let's say, if there was no market for it, right? But if you have a market where there's an underserved demand for housing, then maybe that's something we should address in the plan. It doesn't say how you address it, but it sort of underscores and highlights some of the trends in market, demographic, population, income, household, and markets. So again, we have to understand, again, where are we starting with? The layout of the chapter looks a little bit like this. So again, we have a condensed demographic and market profile for, again, real estate, residential, office, retail, industry, population. But this is kind of how that chapter is laid out. And this is sort of the cadence for what I'm going to go through quickly is the purpose of the chapter, what's covered, then I'll give you some examples of how that chapter is laid out. Vision and themes, it's real simple. This is sort of where do we hope to achieve? Where do we want to be in the next 10 to 20 years? It lays out a vision for the county, establishes some priority themes, and establishes some goals and a framework for the plan. So again, this is sort of sets the pace of the underlying broad brushstrokes of what the county wants to address in the comprehensive plan. So there's a vision statement, and then there are themes. And then let me talk about a vision statement is aspirational. A vision statement says what we aspire to be like or achieve over the next 10 to 20 years. How do we see McHenry County 10, 20 years from now? So it's an aspirational vision statement. That's the intent of it. And then there are planning themes, things that came up that were valued as being important by a lot of people, but didn't merit being a chapter. So instead it was a theme or something that we wanted to make sure we were addressing or were aware of as we looked at transportation, infrastructure, transportation, agricultural preservation. So as we looked at all these other chapters, were there things that we should keep in mind no matter what it was we were looking at? Economic development. So this was diversity, equity, inclusion to make sure the county was welcoming, to take a look at public health and wellness, and then to take a look at sustainability and resiliency, where we being environmentally responsible is a good way to think about that, and resilient from an infrastructure, natural hazard, or environmental perspective. So these things don't have chapters, but these are things that we were mindful of as we worked through the plan. The next one is land use and development. At the core of any comprehensive plan is land use. It used to be for 100 years, a comprehensive plan was basically a land use map. That's it, it was a map. And it basically had 5 colors on it. Yellow for residential, blue for office or public, red for commercial, purple for industrial, and green for agricultural space. It was a pretty basic map, and it said, here's the land use that we plan for the future. Right? This is our future land use plan. And that's what a comprehensive plan was. It's evolved over the last 50 years or 100 years to be much more comprehensive and with new requirements being mandated. But at the core of a comprehensive plan is the land use plan. And again, it's the future land use, not current, and it begins to identify how you hope the county will develop over time. So we take a look at the existing land use patterns, municipal growth areas, and land use planning. We looked at all the comprehensive plans for Huntley, for McHenry, for Woodstock, for all the different, Algonquin, all the different communities to see how do they plan on growing, right? As they grow, as they annex, as they extend utilities and infrastructure, as they develop, they have a legal purview to do that, but they're within the county, so we want to coordinate to the extent possible, but they have their own zoning, their own elected officials, their own development processes that are not bound by the county. So we take a look at all the different land use and development and community input. We looked at all the municipal growth that took place in the county with all your partnering municipalities, villages, and cities. We took a look at growth in McHenry County overall, and some key different takeaways. So balanced growth and development with preservation in mind. Coordinate with county municipalities and townships to further land use and development plans. Much of the most intense development that takes place within the cities and villages, not within the unincorporated areas, and that's their purview. Guide annexation into municipalities where appropriate, and encourage sustainable land use and development best practice. One of the things that was important from the get-go to the Regional Plan Commission and to everybody we spoke with, to be honest, was to prevent the premature conversion of open space and agricultural land into development. They wanted to do that wisely. They didn't want to see this leapfrog development going out into the county, just seeing development happen willy-nilly, right? So we really have to, in order to do that, partner with municipalities that control and extend the utilities necessary for development. So these are some of the key things we wanted to focus on. Future land use. So one of the things that we did is we developed 3 different land use scenarios, and we examined the impact of those different scenarios to try to take a look at what development could be like. One of them was to take a look at CMAP's development projections, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, to see how they, based off of their projections, anticipate the county growing, primarily with development happening in and around the municipalities. We took a look at one scenario that prioritized aquifer protection and recharge capabilities within the county, so that water source would stay intact. And the third one, Sujan, was?
Current adopted plans.
Yeah, so your current adopted plan. So taking a look at all your existing municipalities, taking a look at your current county comprehensive plan, and saying if you went for the next 20 years with the same plans that regulated you for the last 20 years, what would that look like? So we looked at those three scenarios to see what the good, the bad, the ugly was, and the benefits or cons of those three different scenarios as a starting point for examination, right? So the chapter layout in here, again, looks kind of like this. There are several different land uses, categories. A key part of the comprehensive plan has to establish a land use for every property within the jurisdiction. And these are pretty broad brushstrokes, but what is residential? What is commercial? What is industrial? What is open space? What is unincorporated? What is municipal? So what is the likely land use designation? Not zoning, but land use designation into the future, right? So we did this for multiple different land uses for the entire county. The next chapter that we put in here after land use was agricultural resources. Agricultural preservation and resources was a priority established very early on by everybody that we spoke with. Key takeaways: identify and deploy additional strategies to preserve ag land, preserve agricultural uses, and provide oversight of any conversion to non-farming development. They want to very carefully provide oversight whenever anybody is proposing something that would take ag land out of ag land to be something else, right? They want to preserve that character of the county, promote soil health, erosion, abatement, and water conservation, and address and combat the impacts of climate change on agricultural uses. So these are some of the key takeaways from the ag land. Again, this is what the chapter looks like. Whenever there was something in there like carbon farming, or later on solar farms, or later on wetland best management practice, or aquifer recharge, a lot of these terms might be new to you. So whenever those terms were introduced, there's a glossary of terms in the back. And whenever we thought there was a concept that is referenced that you might not be familiar with, the plan identifies sort of these call-outs in these green or blue boxes, which describes something that might be referred to in the plan, sort of bring you up to speed on it. And then if you want to do a little bit more deep dive by doing some Google search or whatever, you could, but you don't have a little bit higher literacy about what we might be talking about. We wanted to avoid, to the extent possible, sort of legalese or plannerese or overly technical language. Some of it, to refer to something correctly, might be outside the normal vernacular, but we tried to keep that to a minimum. And where something did fall outside of sort of layman terminology, we identified it, documented it, put it in a glossary. But this plan was specifically written to be very user-friendly, very consumable. You shouldn't need a technical expert or a lawyer to read any of this. It's very straightforward. And then throughout the document, tying it back to the themes, whenever we thought there was a goal or an objective that we talk about that we thought particularly helped the county be more healthy, or particularly did a good job to address some sustainability or resiliency type of issue, or made it a more welcoming county. One of the things that we did is we tied it back using these symbols to sort of the purple circle with a cross in it was sort of a health or wellness related. The green circle with the leaf was a resiliency or sustainability issue. And I don't see the symbol up on here for the DEI or the equity lens, but that'll pop up later. You can see how throughout the document, we just sort of put an earmark next to these things that we thought might further those objectives. But the objectives aren't written specifically for that thing. Next is housing. Housing is a really big issue. Housing may be the biggest issue that we face as a firm across the country, regardless of community, whether it's an agricultural rural community or an urban community, large or small. Some aspect of housing percolates up to the top. A variety of housing product. Not everybody wants to live on a 5-acre lot with a home on it. Some people do, gotta have it. Some people don't, gotta have something else, right? So what are the options for people coming into the housing market? What about elderly people who are leaving the job market? What about people with a big family? What about people who just live by themselves? What about someone who needs a more affordable product versus someone who has maybe wants a higher end product? You've got to provide a wide variety of housing to adequately accommodate current and future populations. The unique thing about the county is a lot of the housing available in the county is available in the municipalities, the cities and villages within the county, and not in the unincorporated areas. Some residential development is at a density or an intensity like commercial or industrial that requires utilities and infrastructure and water and sewer, not well and septic. And they just don't have a home in the county because you just couldn't pull it off, right? You would need that infrastructure that municipalities have. So a lot of the housing that is provided in the county proper is provided through municipal development, not through unincorporated areas. But we talk about expanding housing choice and allowing a greater diversity of unit size. And again, this is often in cooperation with or partnering with or coordinating with municipalities, villages, and cities, not the county going out and developing these properties. Encourage growth in strategic locations to meet housing demand. These strategic locations, again, for more intense housing, usually is adjacent to or within municipalities or their growth areas. And then incentivizing the use of planning practice such as a 15-minute neighborhood to promote interconnectivity. I chatted with a couple of people before the meeting here who live in the county, and they live in one of the municipalities, and they said, it's great, you know, I still have access to this open space and this rural atmosphere and incredible trails and environmental features, but with where I live in this municipality, I can walk to most of the things I need in this kind of a nice combination. So this is one of the notions we talk about, is making sure that people who live in the county have the option in certain locations of living in these locations where they don't have to rely on a car, right? So it's really about providing a lot of different things to accommodate a lot of different people in different places in different ways. It's not the same thing everywhere. This is what the chapter layout looks like. And again, you can begin to see how we try to put in photographs to identify land use and development characteristics, as well as detailed objectives and specific recommendations underneath each objective. Economic development focuses not on the residential, but primarily the commercial and industrial areas, so commerce and employment. We took a look at strategic locations for commercial and industrial development and facilitating workforce development to develop opportunities for career for youth and employees in the county. The biggest issue we face across the country for to have a robust employment sector is to have a local trained housed workforce. And one of the biggest issues we have is people say, we would like to move our new employment facility here or factory here or new warehousing facility here or whatever, but there's no place for employees to live. We want to coordinate with the local schools to put in an apprenticeship program so kids could actually not just have a route to college, but maybe a route to local employment. So we talk about workforce development, workforce housing, entrepreneurship with some of the new emerging industries. And again, a lot of the locations that are earmarked for these types of uses require a level of infrastructure that the county unincorporated areas can't provide, so it's usually adjacent to a municipality where they can meet some of these other components. But to be a robust location for people to live, you want these uses somewhere in the county. And again, this is sort of what it looks like. So we talk about things like language barriers, developing economic strategies, supporting tourism in certain areas, whether it be history or ecotourism or agritourism. There's a bunch of different types. But we talk about what some of these components are. Transportation is a very big one. It's funny, when we do planning, lots of times transportation are the biggest issues raised by residents as being the most problematic or concerning, and they're often the last to ever be successfully resolved, and that's frustrating. And a big part of that is because a lot of it is not within the jurisdiction of the entity doing the planning. Enter IDOT. So IDOT controls a lot of the jurisdictional roads that go through the county clearly. Their objective is to move traffic through an area safely, but they are less concerned with sense of place, local commerce, pedestrian mobility. They're not driven by those missions, and the county and municipalities are driven by those missions. So some of the challenges is with coordinating with local municipalities, the county, and IDOT, because different roadways are governed by and are the authority of different jurisdictions. And that's just a challenging thing to govern. So working with KLOA and IDOT and all the different municipalities, we took a look at sort of how to make sure that everybody could get around as safely as possible. The notion of complete streets, have you guys heard of that notion? Complete streets is the idea that no matter what form of mobility you want to adhere to, you have a safe way to get around. So whether you choose to bike, whether you take a bus, whether you're on a car, whether you want to walk, whether you drive, to the extent possible when a road system is designed, you want to accommodate more than just the car. Now, some roads you do not want people biking on. It doesn't mean you put a bike on every road. You absolutely don't want to do that. And you don't want to put a sidewalk on every road either. Some are designed to move traffic through a region at a pretty high rate of speed. But you want to look at every opportunity to say, are we doing the right thing here to accommodate the most number of people as they move around? The notion is called complete streets. So we look at a complete connected multimodal network. Multimodal just means walk, bike, transit, car, freight. Sort of take a look at the efficient movement of goods and people. It's not just about moving people, but freight as well. Mobility and access for everybody, and then protecting environmental resources. Whenever you put down a railroad, wherever you put down a major roadway, you've got a lot of riparian corridors or waterways that go through the county. How do you traverse those safely or other jurisdictions? And again, here's an example of some of the detail that we have in there for very specific recommendations. And then again, that notion of complete streets that I just talked about is at the very end. The next thing is water resources. The level of effort this county put into water resources is really exemplary. We do this across the country, and few states, counties, or cities put this much effort into valuing and planning for water as a resource, so it's really nice to see. You'd think more would do it, because without it, you're not doing much. You have to have it, and as you grow, you have to plan for it, otherwise you risk it as a resource. So this is really, really well done chapter by a couple of members of our team. But we took a look at sustainability and groundwater recharge, resources and recharge, increasing opportunities to collaborate with McHenry County communities on key water resource related issues, work to address overarching water quality, and contribute to improved stormwater management. Flooding, everybody can relate to. We all know how big of a problem that is. You had to deal with it. The more you pave, the more flooding you have. That has to be taken into consideration. The other thing that you take a look at is things like a riparian corridor. When I say riparian, I mean like a creek or a river, like flowing water versus a lake or a pond. Riparian is flowing. A flowing water system, a creek or river, they don't care where one city starts and another city starts. They don't care where the county boundaries are. Ecological systems flow where they flow. Water basins, drainage basins, ecological riparian corridors. So the county has to, and it prioritizes coordinating with the other jurisdictions around the county, the other jurisdictions within the county, and the other agencies that have jurisdiction over a lot of these waterways. And a lot of that is the state and not the county or the municipalities. So this is a tricky one. And again, with so much of the county being dependent on aquifer recharge through well and septic and other things, protecting your aquifer system is crucial, right? You want the quality of the water and the availability of water coming up out of the ground, not through a municipal system, but through well and septic. Those systems have to be robust now and going forward as you grow. So again, these things don't happen in accident. So we map all the different features, the floodplains, the basins, the floodways, the riparian corridors, the creeks, the rivers, the waters. We map all of it, and it is a very robust chapter. You might not think you care or would want to read about water. Read this chapter, it's pretty enlightening, and it's really important. And if for no other thing, although I think the plan as a whole does a phenomenal job about addressing things extensively and in detail, this is a really nice chapter to read. And it's a nice thing that this county at the beginning put a flag in the ground and said, this matters to us, we're going to get this part right, because if we don't, it's probably not. You did a real nice job. Next is green infrastructure. The best way to think about green infrastructure, if you could, is, you know, for when you get into built environments or urban environments, you have engineered infrastructure, right? It's all, how big is the pipe in the ground? Where does the culvert take the water? How big is the basin underground to hold the water? When you get into areas outside of that, you're looking at green infrastructure. You look at bioswales, ditches, low-lying areas. You're looking at naturalized or green engineered environmental infrastructure versus the old gray infrastructure of pipes, conduit, concrete, metal. It's a different type of system, and it works incredibly well for large rural or agricultural areas like McHenry County. So how to do use green, and so this is its own chapter. Usually this is a paragraph in a plan that's maybe just anecdotally touched on to say, hey, we looked at green infrastructure. This is a heavy lift just on green infrastructure. So conserve sensitive natural areas, improve stewardship of natural areas, update McHenry County Green Infrastructure Plan, which you've already got, your data layers, review and update conservation development principles, expand greenway trails and connections, and preserve and expand and restore the oak woodlands. This notion real quickly they want to touch on, and it's several places in the plan, this notion of conservation design. And conservation design doesn't mean you pin off a giant area and you say you can't do anything in here. What it does is when you do development someplace, any type of development, you step back and say, this is going to be guided by a set of principles. Are we identifying before we even design this site, water resources, wetlands, mature stands of trees, sensitive soils, erosion areas, key vegetation? Are we looking at these areas and saying, okay, before we even develop this area, how do we best protect all of this stuff? And then once you put a plan in place to protect all stuff, you say, now if we were to develop, what would that look like while we incorporate protection of all these features? It's a notion called conservation design. This plan mandates it for almost everything, and it is within this plan throughout, that when development occurs, because development will occur in certain areas, that it be as environmentally responsible as possible. It's one of the things I like about Connecticut's planning. They don't call it a comprehensive plan, they call it a plan of conservation and development. And one of the things they emphasize even in the title of the requirement is you have to identify how you're going to conserve this stuff, not just talk about how you're going to develop this stuff. It's in the title and it's the right approach. But a lot of that we pulled into this to make sure green stays green for as long as possible, right? So again, we put different things in here about, again, best case practices or to explain. So here's controlled burn management, what that might mean, because we talk about when you have the mature stands of oaks and prairies and things like that, that stuff has to be maintained over time. So we talk about how those resources have to be maintained. But we also put in there some case studies or examples, like here's the National Wildlife Refuge. And we talk about different case studies or examples. So sometimes we're talking about a best case example or a practice. We try to give you an example that you can go online and say, okay, this is what they're talking about. This is the way it should be done. So we try to give examples of places that have done things well to serve as an example when we recommend something here. Next is energy infrastructure. This was an interesting chapter. This covers a lot of different things. So emphasize energy efficiency in existing buildings, new construction, create targeted and proactive approach to renewable energy, promote energy conservation and public education, and plan EV charging station infrastructure to prepare for the rise in EVs. Some people like EVs, some people don't like EVs. There seems to be an awfully big push to see EVs come online. EVs, if they come online, to the extent I think some people think they will over the next 20 years we're talking about, there's going to need to be some infrastructure in place that doesn't exist right now. It doesn't mean you're going to see charging stations in the middle of a cornfield in the middle of nowhere in McHenry County, but it means you may need to coordinate to make sure some of the municipalities have them. So if you go out and buy a Rivian, which is a nice truck, and you live on your 100-acre farm, you know when you go to Woodstock, there's a charging place that you can plug into when you go down there to grab some barbecue or something. So we talk about all that, but we also talk about solar, we talk about wind, we talk about nuclear. We try to talk about all the things that may emerge in the next 20 years as an issue. All of these things, when it comes to energy, is heavily regulated by the state and often by the Fed, depending on what we're talking about. The county does have purview to do some things in different areas and how it can regulate it locally to ensure that, like it does right now, if a solar farm installation goes up or a solar installation goes up, when that switch gets turned off in 8 years, they can't leave all that stuff behind. They got to get it out of there and return the land back to what it needs to be, right? So things like that. So we want to make sure that if infrastructure goes in place, if at a later date that infrastructure is no longer needed, though that infrastructure gets removed. So again, we talk about all the different types of alternative energies, whether it's electric, whether it's wind, whether it's geothermal, and we even talk about nuclear. But this is a pretty robust chapter. Historic preservation is the next thing. We really debated a lot on what photos to use where, and it's funny, you could have 100 pages of text and 3 photos, and a lot of the discussion ends up being on what photos you should use because it's a visceral response. We live in a visual age, right? People first look to the pictures, and so that matters. And so we really tried to make sure we had the right pictures and photographs throughout this document to capture character and intent and sense of place, and sort of that uniquely McHenry County aesthetic. Again, we work with McGuire and Gillespie. It's an architecture firm. A big part of what that firm specializes in is historic preservation. But it's not just the structures here that are environmental. You have some environmental natural features as well. Some of your environmental features are environmentally protected and of environmental value. So it's not just the built form. So identify and plan and enhance historic rural crossroads. Some of your roads actually have historic. There's a classification for historic roads or historic roadways, and we've mapped the ones in McHenry County. Enhance historic rural cross sections, local main streets. A lot of the history that you have here is also in your local municipalities. Downtown Huntley, Woodstock, Algonquin. There's a lot of history in this county that is afforded to you to visit in the municipalities within the county. And it makes it a very rich part of your DNA and something a lot of people come to explore and visit on a long weekend or a drive. It's a nice thing. Identify and plan for the preservation of the county's rural landscapes, including historic oak groves and scenic roads, invest in the county's historic resources, policy and funding, and coordinate with local municipalities and governments and nonprofit organizations. Again, a lot of your historic assets rest in some of the historic structures in the municipalities that you have within McHenry County. And again, here was a really good one where we tried to capture some of the rich history of some of the historic buildings throughout the county. And again, the cadence of these chapters is detailed objectives, detailed recommendations underneath each objective. And the way this was worded, it's not overly staccato for you music buffs, right? It's not just a quick note or a quick hit. Each one of these recommendations, we wrote a paragraph or two. We wanted to provide a little sense of the rationale, the context, why it's important, what we're talking about, as well as the recommendation moving forward. We didn't want this to be a document that you had to flip back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. You could sit down and read a chapter and you could be like, oh, I get it, this makes sense, because they explain why it's important, what sort of the assets are in McHenry, and how we can pivot going forward to make sure they're protected. But it's sort of self-contained context in the way this was written. So a goal is, the rationale is provided for the goal and the context. And then when we get into the specific recommendations, it isn't just a bullet list of recommendations. Each one is explained with rationale and narrative, so you know why it is the plan recommends what it's recommending. And then the last chapter, you're probably thinking like, thank God it's the last chapter, is implementation. These are 20-year policy documents, all right? They're often updated more frequently than that, but they're written for that horizon, 10 to 20 years. They're meant to inform decision-making. And there's a lot in here, and we're not saying the county has to pay for all of it, or the county's gonna do all of it. It can't, it's not supposed to. But we try to identify to the extent possible who the county should partner with. Who are the other agencies and organizations that could help do something? What are some of the potential sources of funding if the county wanted to write a grant to go after some funding to protect an area? What's the best grant funding to pursue that would be the most likely candidate to give you money to do something the county wanted to accomplish? So this is sort of a roadmap, sort of a menu, if you will, of how to achieve success over multiple years. It doesn't mean if we recommend something in the plan that there's a fleet of idling bulldozers behind this building, and as soon as the gavel comes down, they're gonna wheel out and go start digging stuff up. This is all driven off of market opportunity, market conditions, property owners who want to do something, developers who propose something. This isn't just the county going out and doing something. But the last place you want to be as a county is back on your heels just reacting to stuff all the time. You want to say, you know what, hey, slow down. We thought about this, and we have some ideas that we want to achieve over time. Maybe you can help us achieve some of these things, but we've thought about this. You want to be as proactive as you can be in terms of policy. So this chapter begins to lay out how the plan could be implemented over time, who the potential partners are. We don't presume to think the county can do all of this. We know it can. Even when cities do comprehensive plans, they don't do everything. They have to partner with people. Economic development tools, the best economic development tools available to the county to pursue to help it fund what it wants to do. And then sort of the time estimate for each action. Some things are low-hanging fruit that can be done pretty quickly. Other things take a long time. you want to improve an intersection, do we think it's going to be a quick action, or it's going to maybe be a slow rollout and cost a lot of money, right? So different types of implementation tasks take more money or less money, can be done very quickly, or take a long, long time and a lot of cooperation. And we try to the extent we can identify those levels of implementation as a way for the county to say, maybe this next year we prioritize these 3 things and go after it. Here's what we better start calling to, right? And the last thing in the chapter is a thing called sort of an action matrix, where what we do is we try to identify anything in the document that is actionable, tied back to key recommendations. We give the page number where that recommendation is in the plan, if you want to go back into the plan and get context. And then it says sort of what the funding sources are, who you should partner with, but it's broken out by chapter. So if you ever want to sort of see what recommendations are that are actionable in terms of implementation, you can go to the very last section of the plan, and it's a multi-page long table that is an action agenda or an action matrix, boiling down the whole 200 pages into a series of specific things and how you might be able to do this over time. So it's sort of the Cliff Notes for those of you that remember what Cliff Notes are. I suppose we could put like a yellow and black cover on this chapter. That's really thinking back like me. That's back when you couldn't Google stuff, right? You had to read like the 5-page version of War and Peace to pass the quiz on Friday. This is the 5-page version of War and Peace. So that's it. So that is, and again, it's a lot that I went through. I understand that. There's no way I could present all the detail of a 200-page document that covers, 12 different topics in detail. I just wanted to give you an orientation. I want you all to sort of understand what the plan is, and maybe more importantly, what the plan isn't. It's, again, not regulatory, doesn't change zoning, doesn't propose zoning, doesn't propose intense development in the middle of the county. It really relies heavily on your municipal partners to coordinate with their plan to provide things the county as a whole might want access to. The next steps, I believe the recommendation after tonight, regardless of what the recommendation is, the recommendation goes to the county commission, and then it's in their court. So thanks, available to answer any questions. Again, from our office, we have Sue John and Allie, who were very instrumental in the process as well. To the best of our knowledge, we'll answer any questions you might have. We have a PDF of the whole document loaded up. If we want to go back and visit any specific page or chapter, we can talk about wherever we want to go. That's a quick overview, or it's quick for me.
Thank you, John.
Well done, John.
Chairman Donner's voice is given out, and I'm a well-known loudmouth, so she's asked me to take over for the balance of the meeting. In this next part, we're going to take any questions or comments from the audience. I want to note that the commissioners are not here to engage with the public. We're simply here to listen. If you have questions, John and his staff will try to answer them for you. If you have comments, now is the time. So please raise your hand, wait to be recognized. When you are recognized, please give your name and address clearly, and then you have 3 minutes to ask a question or make a comment. It's now time to raise your hand and make a comment. What?
You want us to take it from there?
Yeah, I figured this would be one of the
Oh, we've got
manners to call folks up if they do want to speak.
Okay, yeah.
And there's questions too.
Yes, questions or does it indicate?
Doesn't say.
Okay. Ray Stalker, do you want to say something?
Nope.
Okay. Judy Connolly? No. Tina Paskey?
No.
Linda Welch?
Oh,
Roy Renteria? No. April Slavic? Slavic?
Yes, I have a question. Okay, on page 23.
Your address, please?
80 Briarwood Drive, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Thank you.
Okay.
Come stand up here, please.
Okay. Okay, on page 23, under sustainability and resilience, the paragraph isn't finished. it says green infrastructure to improve water management and there's nothing else.
So John has the PDF on this.
Okay, because I printed this off what was on the website.
Improve water, sorry.
Right here, just right here on the bottom, it says this and, so there's supposed to be something more in that statement.
Yeah, that might be just an error in the PDF. It's complete. We have discouraging sprawl to end up.
What's it say?
Just to print.
And discouraging scroll. Okay.
You just want to go over the whole thing, so John, real quick, so everybody has the
Yep.
benefit of hearing what the question was, what the answer was.
So the sustainability and resiliency theme definition, the last two words were not in that printout. I'm just gonna read over the whole paragraph. So sustainability and resiliency, generally defined as the ability of meeting the needs of the present generation without undermining the ability of future generation to meet their needs. In a similar fashion, sustainability is at the forefront of McHenry County's planning and development considerations. It will prioritize protecting water resources, agricultural land, and natural areas. This may include adopting policies to protect critical areas, incorporating green infrastructure to improve water management, and discouraging sprawl. That was the last two words were not in that breakdown. So, thanks.
Okay. Catherine Jones?
No.
Liz Cadero? Carlin Johnson? Justice Peterman? Jill Wade-Bo? Waken, sorry.
Yes. 9435 Nicholas Lane. And I just became aware of this unfortunately last week and haven't had much time to study, but you all have worked so hard and I appreciate the work that you guys have done. I noticed a couple of things actually that stuck out. The DEI initiative that seems to be embedded in a lot of the things these days. How many of you are on the board? 11 that I see here?
We're the commission.
This is the Regional Plan Commission? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, is it really for the whole county, all of you determine this, and is it going to move forward just based on a vote without the people saying so?
Again, so I guess that the RPC is not direct question. It was something that was debated. So this was the recommendation. It was discussed at multiple meetings, the terminology, the inclusion of it. Alternate language was discussed at multiple meetings, including, I think it was one of the last things we discussed at the last RPC meeting. It was brought up once again, and it was discussed robustly and a vote taken just on it to leave it in the way it was proposed. So at this point, the way it's recommended by the RPC and the way that it was left in for the open house is that it would go to the county commission. Now they can take it out, change it, modify whatever they want, but it was in there now and it was discussed at multiple points throughout the process. So it wasn't an oversight or one or two people putting it in. I mean, it was something that was repeatedly discussed at length at multiple meetings, specifically that language and that inclusion, including the very last meeting where it was decided to leave it the way it is by the commission.
Yeah, I don't think it's very inclusive for the whole county that, 11 of you come up with the plan and then you implement it into the whole county.
Well, we are a recommending body. We do not decide. The county board can change anything it wishes, and both the county board committee and the county board as a whole will consider this and make whatever changes it feels are appropriate.
Okay.
And
what's the date on that meeting?
I'm not sure.
I believe it's anticipated to go through the June board cycle.
Okay.
So it'll be the first Tuesday in June would be the Planning and Environmental Development Committee, and then the third Thursday would be the committee.
Just a quick thing to add. So earlier when John went through that 7-step process, the second step and the most critical step has been public engagement. Right after kicking off the project, we've had several workshops, several surveys done, We've collected hundreds of public feedback, and these themes were kind of brought up then. It's not something we settled on, hey, we should have these themes moving forward, but these were, again, like what John said, were topics that were brought up regularly throughout the engagement, throughout the planning process, but did not entitled to be a chapter itself. But the recommendations in here kind of touch on those, so that's why it has a place.
Where were the surveys sent? Who were they sent to?
So it's being publicized on the project website, on the county's website, and even in the fairground, we've had several opportunities throughout the planning process to kind of get involved. So it has been heavily advertised.
Did anyone hear this survey?
No.
That's all I have.
And we all were at the fair.
So real quick, she brought up a couple of good questions, just procedurally. I know there was concern that a select few people would be making the decision, but the way these public processes have to work is you have elected and appointed officials in the county. Every municipality has them, every county has them, and their charged duty is to go through this process, right? And based on an extensive outreach, everybody might not have filled out the survey, hundreds of people did. We had hundreds of people participate at several different workshops and events. So did everybody participate? Clearly not. Some people just aren't, maybe weren't aware of it. But based off the process that was undertaken, the hundreds of people that participated, the discussion that was had, this group, working with a consultant team of 5 consultants, crafted this, a lot of it based off of input, to put pen to paper to say, from what we heard and over the course of a year and a half, this is our working draft based on what we know here and have discussed. That's their charge to say, based on our best work and effort, this is our draft that we are recommending for consideration. That's their legal charge. And then it goes procedurally to the elected officials who ultimately can say yes, no, or yes, subject to changing these things. And that's their legal charge. So it's not that, and again, I'm sort of defending the process, not any individual. It's a legitimate question, is every jurisdiction has a legal process that has to be followed. Every municipality or county has different levels of elected and appointed officials who this is their charge that they are discharging responsibly, following a very public process. But at the end of the day, it is the elected officials who ultimately have say as to what will be or will not be in this document. But this is the process you have to go to get them something to react.
And elected by we the people.
Correct, yeah, right. So that's sort of that's democracy. You elect them, they appoint people, they do their job, they send stuff to them as elected representatives, they make the decisions. That's sort of the cycle.
Candace.
Well, say it louder.
Candace Bach.
No.
Courtney Hunt.
No.
Fred Bach.
Nope.
Darnell.
What? Darnell?
No. Charlotte.
Okay. Stephen Snyder?
Just like to say thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Real vision.
Appreciate
it.
Thank you.
Dee Darna?
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody up there on that committee. You've dedicated a lot of your own personal time. You're not getting paid to be up there. It was very time consuming and it's appreciated by the community. I'm in favor of there being diversity, equity, and inclusion considered in our planning. It's important to our housing. It's important to our affordable housing, making sure that we are advocating for people that cannot advocate for themselves. When we have handicap ramps, we have handicapped parking spaces. There are issues that people have that you cannot see. It's important we're taking those into consideration. And I appreciate your oversight on that and taking that into consideration. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. But people in the future, if you're going to make a comment, you need to come up here and give us your name and your address. Thanks. Deb Frank or Farah? Okay. Karen Turo?
I'll be contacting my board members, thank you.
What?
I'll be contacting my board members.
Okay, thank you.
That's probably me, because I was after her.
Yeah.
Sorry. I should work on it.
Okay.
I have one question.
Come on up.
My name's Kim Brown, 281 Summerdale, Lighting Algonquin. When you were speaking, you were talking about how this is just policy that you're recommending, not governing. Did I understand you also mentioned something about this governing unincorporated areas? Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, so what I was trying to get across was, I know some of the previous meetings, people thought we were proposing rezoning. There's no zoning changes. And when I say it's not regulatory, zoning does govern what you can do with your property and how it can be developed. If you want relief, you have to go seek it, right? You don't have to seek relief if, the comprehensive plan is passed. It's not regulatory. The county has jurisdiction over the unincorporated areas of the county. That's what I'm trying to say. So maybe I didn't say it well last time, but let's say Woodstock, for instance. If they want to do something in their downtown, the county's comprehensive plan isn't going to prevent Woodstock from doing in their downtown what Woodstock wants to do in its incorporated downtown, right? So this is a policy document for the unincorporated areas and how the county can partner with municipalities, but it doesn't have the jurisdiction to plan for what a municipality would do. Does that make sense?
Keith Burness?
No.
Melissa Bryant?
No.
Rachel Johnson?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Rachel Johnson, 7510 Pingree Road in Crystal Lake. I thank you also for your work and your labor. I was wondering if someone could explain to us the second line on the first opening thing said that you were wanting to know where you're going. And I wanted just some more information, maybe from anyone, just kind of how did you come up with how to determine where we want to go for McHenry County? I just kind of wanted to get some thought on that. Did you guys have anything?
Yeah, so I'll address that. So the question was, how did we determine the vision of where the county wants to go? So again, to what Sue John said, we had visioning workshops, we had surveys and questionnaires, and part of that is, what do you want to see, what do you not want to see, what vision do you have for McHenry County going forward in terms of land use development, roadways, preservation. So an example or a reflection of that was the fact that throughout this document, we prioritize agricultural preservation. This is one of the things that we heard. This is important to us. So we're saying where we want to be in the next 10 to 20 years, we want to preserve our agriculture. So it became a tenet of the plan. People talked about conservation design or the importance of being good stewards of the environment or being environmentally responsible as we grow and as we sort of shepherd development in the appropriate regions and not in other areas. That was in direct response to people saying, we want to be environmentally responsible. We want to preserve our natural areas, our mature woods, stands of trees, our aquifer recharge. These are vital resources. We had to protect them. It's a priority. That's part of our vision. So it became part of the document. So a lot of that came from surveys, questionnaires, conversations, open houses, visioning workshops, online questionnaires, online mapping. We had online mapping that was done. People could go online and map criteria, priorities, issues. So it was from all of that, and then a year and a half worth of discussion to vet it, and to the extent possible, we wanted to make sure the plan reflected the values of what people said they wanted to see in our plan as part of the vision. So those are a couple of examples of how commentary or feedback we got informed the development of the recommendations of the plan in terms of our vision.
Okay. And then also, would you give us an idea of what kind of impact it's going to have on the townships themselves, as far as, since you don't have jurisdiction over the municipalities and they're going to do what they want, what kind of burden or additional challenges are townships going to have to go through?
It won't be. It's a good question. So when you say townships, you mean like cities or villages, right?
Well,
or you mean an actual township?
We have 16 townships.
Townships, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an additional burden, let's say. So every governmental jurisdiction And Illinois has yet to meet a governmental jurisdiction it didn't want to approve, because there's more here than per capita than any other state in the country, in case you're wondering. But they all have their own autonomy to some degree, right? And they all have the things that they have purview over and control over, and some things they don't, right? If the state passes a law, McHenry County can't say, well, we're going to pass something that says that law isn't irrelevant in McHenry County. You don't have that legal authority. Likewise, if the county says this is something that is important to us, if a municipality or a township wants to go a different direction, they can, but 99% of the time, based on our experience, is a municipality or a township or a village will look at what the county has plans to try to coordinate and dovetail to the extent possible. Doesn't mean jurisdictions don't butt heads, they do all the time. There might be competing development interests all the time, and these are the realities. But by having this document, you articulate your vision to everybody else within or adjacent to your jurisdiction. Say, hey, you guys can do what you want, but just so you know, this is what we think is important to this area. From a county's perspective, this is what we value. Now, you can go ahead and do what you want. We don't have purview legally over your decisions, but hopefully our vision will inform your decision making. And that's one of the values or tenets of a comprehensive plan, is to articulate with clarity your vision to anybody in or adjacent to your jurisdiction. So hopefully they consider your position when they make their decision.
And is that kind of spelled out in the 199-page document, that they have the freedom to do that? We just are like suggesting or directing this, but the townships still have.
Well, it doesn't get into all the different levels. It identifies everybody as being partners. It identifies what the county has purview over. It doesn't go through and delineate everything that we don't, or it doesn't say that a village can still do what it wants. It just says this is how this is to be used. So at the beginning of the plan, we do identify how the county should be using the document to review development proposals and evaluate them, to prioritize and identify capital improvement expenditures, to identify valuable assets, lands, and conservation areas that should be protected, and the importance of using it to get grant money to do stuff. These are all linked. And then another one is to make sure that other jurisdictions know the county's vision to improve planning and coordination with those other entities to the extent you can influence their decision-making with your vision. So that's all spelled out at the beginning of the plan as to how the county should be using this document. Yep.
Thank you. Randy Johnson?
No.
Tom Stroner?
No.
Lori Cisneros?
Lori Cisneros, 9908 Harmony Hill Road in Marengo. I'm kind of glad to have just followed this woman that was up here, because that was one of my issues under that action matrix. And the land use on 04, it says recommended programs, resources, and partners. And not once is the township listed as a partner. It'll say coordinate with county municipalities and township on future land use and development plans, but it just says county municipalities. Not once are we the township listed on there. I'm a township trustee, obviously, and I'm also a liaison on our plan commission. So what you guys are doing here right now is real critical to me, because guess what? We're looking at redoing our land use map and our plan just before I realized this thing was, and so we're in a holding pattern. That's something I think that needs to be addressed. So thanks for keying me in there. I have another question, and it's all over the place because I attended the open house, and these are more of my questions. I think we spoke a little bit when we were there. So one of the things was also under that same thing, under coordinating with townships, I would love to see an electronic database with the 17 township as a contact. I've asked for this for probably way before COVID, and this has nothing to do with you guys, but I've asked the county, the P&D, and I don't get it. You know, whereas it could be sent out, April 19th, we all could have got a copy of this document. If I didn't get registered, if I wasn't registered to the county's newsletter, I wouldn't have known this document existed when it did. And now I have less than a month to kind of get through it. We got to do better there, guys, alerting people in general in our townships. The other things here, we've got a few of them. Oh, our map. So I did ask, since I told you we were redoing our Coral Township maps, I had asked Renee Hanlon to send me, could she send me just a map of Coral Township. And that's where I got scenario 3. She sent me the whole group of scenario 3 township maps, which was great because then I didn't have to keep making it bigger and bigger, and I got just my township. My question is that the scenario, first of all, that we're moving forward with? Have we decided that yet? That was, because I think you said scenario, which I didn't see scenario 1, scenario 2. I just got a scenario 3 group of these. And so, and I'm just curious if that was the last one, and if it is, I know it's a totally different direction on how these maps have been portrayed in the past. I'm not saying I don't like it, I kind of like it, there was more ag there. But how did we determine, is all the projected growth then pretty much determined somewhat by language? Like, for example, the estate, any new estate that I saw was adjacent to existing estate, you know. So I'm kind of wondering how that was predicted. I'll do a couple of questions on the map. It was forecast based. I couldn't tell which parcels were current and which ones were new. Oh.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Narrows. That's 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm done? So how do I get more of these questions to you? Yeah, well, I tried, you know, I gave them to Adam, but I didn't, he said I needed to come here.
Right now, the lady that you talked to, Renee?
Yes.
Is out of the country.
I know, she told me till the 28th.
Right.
And so it was Anna.
We can work with Anna and see what we can do, but that's not a question that we can handle here at this commission. So there's other ways to get about it, but.
But is that gonna be, if it's part of the 2050, isn't it part of this whole land use then, if that's the map that's gonna be?
I can address some of the questions that you said so far. Yeah. So no, they're all very valid. First of all, your point about the township not being in there, 100% valid, it should be, we'll make that correction. And it should likely be listed in multiple locations.
Oh, exactly.
As a strategic partner. So omission on our part, apologies, that should be in there, it's a good point. On the mapping, we wouldn't refer to the preferred land use arrangement as a scenario or anything, it's a future land use plan. We looked at multiple scenarios to evaluate them. So we looked at ones that, you know, CMAP projections are pretty intense, so we looked at some of those. We looked at the ones that were based off of the work that was done 15, 20 years ago as another, like, how did those projections play out? And then we looked at the approach of, we sort of, what's the terminology for the aquifer? There's a name for that.
The SARA overlay?
Yeah, the SARA overlay, which is sort of the aquifer protection. So we looked at that as one thing. So the preferred or the future land use plan, that is the recommendation, it's not referred to as a scenario, that is the future land use plan. So if you don't have that one, we can get you on. That's the one you need. The other ones are just for research and discussion and evaluative purposes.
Yeah, I don't know which one I have.
Yeah, what you need is just the future land use plan, which is, so it's not referred to.
But I just want mine of Coral Township.
Yeah, we'll have to look at the GIS data to parcel that out, but it's not as easy as like getting scissors out.
I know what the big one looks like, but I can't tell.
Yeah, so we can delineate that for you and get it to you.
Okay.
So all of those things, can't do anything about the county's communication.
No, and I get
but-
it. Well, no, but I would like that to be as part of this.
But your other points are spot on.
All right, I will get any other questions. I think you have other ones, but sorry.
I'm gonna add one more thing. Pardon me, I'm not necessarily for you, you're not, but John, if people have something to say, let them say what they're going to say in their 3 minutes and then answer them, because otherwise we can't figure out what their 3 minutes are. Thank you.
Dan Volkers.
Good evening, everybody. Lots of faces I've seen before. Some when I started my Farm Bureau career. Dan Volkers with the McHenry County Farm Bureau. 1102 McConnell Road, Woodstock would be the office address. My personal address is 20502 Delks Drive, Marengo, Illinois. Thank you for your work on the plan. Definitely see agriculture mentioned throughout the plan and appreciate the importance that you give the industry. When looking at the draft, it states that McHenry County agricultural sales were approximately 164 million in 2017, which was probably the best data that was available at the start of the commission's work. Since then, the 22 census of agriculture was released, and it has a figure of 244 million. So it'd be a significant contribution to the county to recognize the total contribution that agriculture is giving in the more recent years, so roughly an $80 million difference. So just wanted to raise that awareness. Under section 3.4, under agriculture as well, it would be nice to have the Ag in the Classroom program recognized. We had that up, but we reach several thousand students, work with 2,500 McHenry County teachers, and also provide master's degree opportunities to the teachers who take classes with us. So if that's a possibility, that would be wonderful. We gathered a group of farmers together during a nice rainy day last week to go through the plan. I think more of them would love to be here, but I think they have a priority called planting going on currently. One of the big things that was brought up during that, above all the other things that are in the agriculture section, is transportation to them. Moving farm equipment and agricultural products on county roads and townships is increasingly difficult due to the number of closed and posted bridges, and also narrow road widths and steep shoulders of some of the roads. So that was a major concern that maybe didn't get enough attention according to them in the plan. The other thing was drainage and drainage districts. As you imagine right now, many of them are trying to plant, and the importance of drainage to agriculture is really significant. And the mention of drainage districts, I think, is absent, which is another form of local government that would be good to recognize as far as an important contribution to agriculture. Just want to thank you for your time and consideration in recognizing agriculture.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Real quick, the data point update's easy to do. The inclusion of the classroom to fields, whatever program that's, I think it's a good mention. And it'd be very simple to sort of go in and put an objective in there about the flooding or the drainage, as well as one specifically to the importance, to the extent possible, to accommodate the relocation and movement of farm equipment on public roads. And when CIP is being undertaken, to take that under design consideration. So all of those would be easy to incorporate.
And now this next one, it's written in red ink. It is Kip and from Hebron, and I can't do the last name. Okay. Kirk Donald.
Hello, my name is Kirk Donald, and I'm from Johnsburg, 1217 Acre Lane. I want to thank all of you who have put the work into the 2050 plan. I particularly like the use of conservation and giving renewable energy sources a chance to grow technologically. I do have some suggestions. Drop the term DEI. For conservative people as myself, I find the term to be offensive considering current cultural connotations. I feel that it's used out of context in this plan. We have the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness put forth in the Declaration of Independence. Just a few minutes ago, we all recited the words "with liberty and justice for all." These words were enough to inspire the greatest civilization in the history of mankind, and certainly enough to get us to 2050. Be careful what you wish for. The plan necessitates heavy government involvement, and with that comes increased taxation. The high rents that the plan criticizes can be exasperated by too many costs and services required. Already, most homeowners in the county feel they are forced to carry the burden of other recipients. Face reality. Most new businesses opening in Illinois are state funded. Because of the cost of doing business in Illinois, small businesses have a mediocre record of success. Be aware, already in McHenry County, there are 6,000 new homes slated to be inhabited. My concern is social. Do we have the resources to help these families, especially the young, respect the natural beauty of our county? Do the police, fire departments, and EMTs have the resources needed? And finally, I would also like to see a plan to protect our wildlife. With over 24 species, we need to learn how to coexist with them. The good news is that McHenry County is the exception. We must be careful not to fix what is broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Johnson? Would anybody else like to make a comment or offer a question? Yes, please, come forward, state your name.
Thank you. My name is Krista Huffman, 1761 Copperfield Lane in Crystal Lake.
I need to swear you in if you haven't already, you did not.
I was here, I just didn't sign in. I didn't see the sign in.
What did you say? Did you already
Yes, I did.
swear in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question.
Sure.
When you were talking section 10 on green infrastructure, you said that the plan mandates at the beginning, and I'm wondering what it is that this plan is mandating. Didn't really understand why you would say it mandates.
I don't recall saying it mandates anything.
It was right at the beginning of that section, you said mandates.
For green infrastructure?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I did, I don't recall saying that because the plan doesn't mandate anything.
Because that kind of took me by surprise when.
If I did
said
say that, I don't think I did, but if I did, I didn't.
Okay.
The plan doesn't dictate or mandate anything.
Okay. And then my other question in section 11 under implementation, on page 168, it starts out implementation through regulation. I know you're saying it's not nothing's being regulated. All the information that goes after that talks about all the different areas of regulation. So I'm kind of confused as to why.
Yeah, no, that's a legitimate question. So she was asking about why there's terminology in the implementation chapter about regulations when the comprehensive plan is not regulatory. And it's in the implementation section because just like different financing and grant mechanisms are indicated, we try to identify the tools that are available to the county in the future if they wish to pursue something. So let's say a developer comes to the county and they want a low impact development of some kind. The county can, to ensure that, they can make sure their zoning regulations have the appropriate environmental protections or low impact guidelines to require development to be low impact, protect the natural environment, things like that. So what we're identifying is the different regulatory things the county has available to them in the future if they want to modify or use those to begin to implement some of the things we talk about in the plan, like preventing premature conversion of agricultural land for development, making sure more intense development happens within the municipalities and not in the middle of the county. You don't leapfrog out into the county and do a big development. To make sure conservation design or environmental features are protected, right? In here, it's a policy, but if this county wants to, they can go back in and take a look at their rules, their regulations, and say, do we want to tweak these to do a better job of protecting the environment? Or is our public process for development approval, do residents have enough notification to know what we're proposing? Maybe we want to change the notification requirements in the regulations so residents have more lead time to think about something before there's a public hearing. So all those are things that the plan isn't saying you have to do, but it's saying, here's all the different types of regulations the county has available to them if they want to go in and tweak these to help deliver what the priorities are in the document. So none of those things are part of the plan, but just like a TIF or a business district or a congestion mitigation grant, it's a tool the county has available to itself.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
We're at the end of the list, so Lori, if you'd like another 3 minutes, we'll give you another round. Oh, Mary
I
McCann.
forgot to sign up, and I raised my hand.
She was here for this one.
Anybody else who hasn't had a chance to sign in?
I just have 3 questions. Okay. So, well, actually, I have 4. To go back to the scenario, the 3 scenarios, in the future land use plan and map, there's no mention or map of the sensitive aquifer recharge areas. So it's not clear if they're considered or not.
I think they want me to let you go through all yours, then I'll answer.
Okay, not a problem, okay.
I don't want to get in trouble.
You like this one. Given that compact and contiguous is a reasonable idea, And that, given the water supply is a major priority of concern, and most communities in McHenry County have shallow wells. Why should urban infill, fringe development, and 15-minute community developments be given priority when such build-outs would prove likely to severely impact most communities' recharge areas? Number 3, why limit build-out to the rural subdivisions where there are somewhere around 800 parcels, I believe, I was referenced, Charles, platted prior to 1980 in an effort to preserve farmland back then? Why is that not mentioned in the plan? Or did I miss it? And that is in section 5.15. In section 4.43, why does the plan state continue to enforce SARA overlay districts when there are no enforcement policies in the UDO for a SARA district? The WRAP, or the Water Resource Action Plan, is not a policy document. And then I have a question. And I will respond. And I guess my other question is, you are voting on the working document tonight, and that's a little unusual. Usually there's a voting document. You're not voting tonight?
We're voting to send it to the PED.
Okay. Well, it's kind of the same thing, I think. But
Well,
not,
this
you're
is
not.
what we're told to do.
Okay. So I have several comments. One of which is this is 2024. The document is very long, to almost 200 pages, and most people read things that are bullet pointed and quicker to read, so you can use them for referrals. So I'm wondering why we went through this effort. You'll appreciate this, Mr. Hausel. I did have a very visceral response to the pictures in the document, especially on the very front page, where there is a rundown antique store in Ridgefield, thank you, and a vacant building that are right on the front page. I know that's not the commission's problem, but that it really does not give a picture of McHenry County, and especially the rural areas. 65% of the picture, or of the unincorporated area, is in west of 47, but 90% of those pictures are all east of 47. So, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm not going to remember all the questions,
Yeah.
so John will read them off to me, just so. First one was?
Regarding the 3 scenarios.
Yeah, so.
And the SARA overlay is not mentioned on
Yeah,
it?
the SARA overlay isn't on one of the scenario land use maps because they're land use maps. Aquifer recharge area isn't a land use, it's an overlay. There may be multiple land uses in that area. There may be a farm, there may be a small subdivision, there may be a state residential house on a 5-acre lot or whatever. Those are land uses, how the land is used. The aquifer recharge area could be an overlay covering several different land uses. So that map that you referenced is a land use map. A recharge overlay is not a land use, it's a recharge area. So
that's right.
So that's why
Well, theoretically, it is a land use.
But it's an overlay it's an overlay to several land uses. So that's a very specific land use. So but it is in other maps, it's just not on that map.
It's on the preliminary land use framework map.
Yep.
That precedes the scenario.
Yeah. So it was considered, but it's not a land use as defined by designation, so it's not on there.
Okay.
What was the next?
I think the next one was your section 5.1.
Was it the adjacent development being?
No, okay, it was, the other one was, actually it's 4.13. 4.13. It's compact and contiguous.
Yeah.
And
so
recharge area.
Yeah, so the best way to protect recharge areas is to keep development compact and contiguous. because most of the recharge areas are not immediately adjacent to or within the incorporated developed areas. So the more municipality, if they're going, we can't say developments or growth is not going to happen. It's going to. So the best thing the county can do is responsibly try to manage it with its municipal partners. And the best way to protect recharge areas, open space areas, things like that, is to keep the development as close to the developed areas as possible, as opposed to leapfrogging out into the county. That would have a bigger impact on recharge than having it contiguous. So any development is going to have an impact on recharge depending on where it is. The least negative impact on recharge areas is going to be when development is contiguous to or adjacent to existing developed areas, as opposed to pushing it further out.
But you're allowing some development on Sarah areas.
Again, if an area is incorporated into municipality, that's beyond the county's control.
Okay, so I'm not going to use your words. You said that the county comprehensive map is often used to inform the public and the municipalities.
Right.
And so I'm putting that onus on you.
Now the onus goes on the onus goes on municipal leaders who can either take it into consideration or choose to ignore it.
Right,
So,
but they don't, most of them don't know much about the Sarah map or any of the recharge stuff. And so.
but the county has that available to them at all times.
Right.
So, I mean, they can
So
even.
you don't think that's a responsibility to put that in?
The responsibility of the county isn't to make sure a municipality does what the county wants. It's their charge. So the county has record of all that. We talk about the recharge areas. We map a lot of this stuff. The county has the overlay. A municipality looks at all of those things when they make a development decision, but ultimately they make the development decision. So.
But we're aiding and abetting, I think that's what's.
Well, it's not our charge. I can design the fastest Porsche in the world and hope it's used responsibly by car enthusiasts. If a bank robber wants to use it to rob a bank, I can't be held culpable because they use a Porsche to rob a bank and get away. So we have the recharge overlay districts. We have a map. We have a policy prioritizing them. We have policy recommendations saying we emphasize development to be compact and not spread out prematurely into the recharge areas. A city has the ability to take that recommendation into consideration or ignore it. It's their choice. We legally have no jurisdiction. So we make it as robust as we can, but ultimately it's their decision. What was the other?
The last one was like the use of photos on the code.
Oh yeah, the use of photos. I'll just say this. It's funny. We've changed the photos several times as directed. We can change any photo to anything anybody directs us to make. And we've made several at the direction of input. We have no vested stake in whether it's a vacant building or a picture of a dog walking down the street. It doesn't matter. We want it to be the right photo for the document to capture what that chapter or page is saying. There's hundreds of, well, I'm just saying, there's hundreds of photos. Photos were vetted ad nauseum at several meetings, and we made several changes as directed. We could change any photo we're directed to change. If you want a different photo and the council says go for it, we'll put in a different photo. That's fine. We got hundreds to pick from. So thanks for your comments. I appreciate it.
Lori, it's your turn for another round if you
John,
want.
good. All I want to make sure is I get a contact of who's going to send me the map. That's all I want.
We'll just keep see me afterwards. We'll get your contact information. Oh, Adam's got it. We'll get her. We'll make sure you get it.
Okay.
Okay. Now we have several board members here. Would any of the board members like to make any comment?
So stand up and show who you are.
Yeah, let the audience know who board members are.
We have a very invested county board.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Thank you very much.
Doing this stuff so good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the only thing I would say, all of your board members are interested in serving your needs. So any concerns you have about the plan or about language in the plan, all of us are interested in serving your needs. So you can contact the ones you can see right now. Teresa Mashas from District 1. The others can introduce themselves, I'm sure. Or your own county board member, which you can find on the website. It tells you how to find your board members.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you,
Kelly, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I do. So thank you all for your hard work. I know it's been hours and hours and hours of compiling data, and it's a really comprehensive document. Our county is a wonderful place to live. I know we all know that, and we all want to keep the water clean, the open space, and the opportunities we have. In my opinion, two important things in this document. I mean, we all have planning and zoning, but our transportation and housing that's affordable to people who live here. So thank you for putting those in there. I also agree with all three themes in the plan, so thank you with that. And when you're addressing green energy, conservation, the use of EVs, I think all of this is so important. I just heard on the way here that this is again going to be the hottest summer on record. So the fact that we can do anything to reduce our carbon footprint, thank you. Out of curiosity, in these plans, or did you guys talk about like the future of the public health department? I mean, I know you don't focus on certain departments, but I just think that's such an important part of our county.
That's what we have, Melissa.
I know Melissa's here, but I was wondering if you guys, if that was something that was talked about in the.
She was an ex officio member of the commission.
Yeah, we had, health was brought up at several different meetings and discussed in certain ways, and a lot of that language was incorporated into the document. So we had health department representation at more than one meeting, yes.
And Melissa was at all of our meetings, or most of them.
I just
As
missed
was
this part.
Scott.
Yes, about wellness, yes, okay. And like Teresa said, please reach out. I mean, you guys you can call us. All our phone numbers are on the website. You can come to the PPD meeting, and you can come to the county board meeting. So please come give your comments.
Can we email questions? Sorry.
Oh, Kelly Wegner.
Can we email questions?
Oh, yeah.
For Tuesday?
Okay.
John, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I also am on the P&D, and we've reached out to a lot of the different commissioners, and I'm also a part of the real estate committee community, and I know Heisler and Neely have reached out or tried to get you. We didn't have your email address actually, Mary, but we got it to some Renee.
Renee Hadley, yeah.
And then, but yeah, I think that Tuesday we'll be able to speak a little bit more fluidly on what, anything that I see that I would like. But for the most part, I have nothing but appreciation and respect for them for the most part. Just some of the housing and the workforce and some of the things that, I've voiced myself before, but I think it looks pretty good for the most part.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say, the last thing I'll say, I mean, I'm probably sick of hearing me talk, but is just to thank everybody for coming out. The thing that I want to see whenever we have a meeting about a document or a community that we're working with is robust participation. I'm less concerned with people agreeing with me. I live in a place where everybody looks like me, thinks like me, talks like me, acts like me, likes what I like. That sounds like a really boring place for me to be. So I don't mind if people disagree. To me, that's what makes things work. Eventually we'll make this better. So we thank you so much for coming out, whether you love it, whether you don't like it, whether you like parts of it but not all of it, whatever. Thanks for taking the time, because a lot of people are busy with a lot of things, and parsing out a couple hours to come here, I appreciate it. And maybe even more importantly, to have read a lot of it, even if not all of it, to be brought up to speed through your own initiative so you had some constructive feedback. I appreciate that. We took diligent notes of anything that anybody said. Some things are real easy fixes that don't change policy. It's a little tweaky stuff, and other things are policy decision. The gavel hasn't come down on this. The recommendation tonight is just to send it on for further consideration. It's not to approve it, right? So we'll make whatever recalibrations we have to do to reflect the fingerprints as directed to get this to be the plan the county needs and wants. So personally, thank you so much for coming out this evening. I know you guys have a lot to do, and I appreciate it. So thanks.
Thank
you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? Please come forward.
Okay, do you need to sign in too? And I think she was one.
Just have a few things and then a couple questions.
And your name and address, please.
And when you just swear. 6806 Hawthorne Drive in Cary.
Okay.
We need to be sworn in, I think she came in after.
You just signed it. Did you sign in?
Yes, she did. I just signed.
Oh, you did just.
Oh, I thought she.
Okay.
Oh, did she leave?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you,
She did sign
We
in.
okay.
Have you
Somebody else came in, I got,
have you been sworn in?
I don't know, I don't think so.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Okay, okay. So, being publicized, all this big plan for Buchanan County's future. What about, I did not think it was publicized much at all. People without internet, they are in McHenry County, they may be on farms or further west out of the cities. Busy people do have the internet, however, I go to the blog, but it wasn't there. You gotta look, you gotta be told about it, look for it, and then you find it. It wasn't there. I don't know. I've been active in other things in Springfield, so I missed it, but there's so many people. Can we get a copy of this or a postcard or something, a mailing to every single person in McHenry County?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, I know this took a lot of money to put all this together. You can spend a little money for a letter to everyone. I mean, every, not homeowner, but every resident, I guess.
Can we request that before it's voted on in June?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, about energy. Wind turbines and solar, they kill a lot of birds. I do have, I inherited some land with my siblings in Oklahoma. We have one wind turbine on 80 acres, and then there's other ones. And there are bird deaths. I mean, you know, the ecology, there was a thing in here about animals and all that, and I'm all about the animals. But, you know, my dad made the decision before he died, but anyway, that's one thing that, it's solar. One hailstorm, you're done. They do that in Oklahoma too. Lots of sun there, not a lot of sun here. Today, yes, usually no. That's expensive to replace constantly. And out where they're slated to go, they get more hail than we do over here. But anyway, Europe, Germany specifically, they shut down their solar and winds because they're not they don't supplement enough. So, but people are saying, oh, we got to do what Europe does. So that's another point. Who is going to be the enforcement? And I saw enforcing or monitoring was a word in a lot of pages. Monitor. Who is it? The county board? Is it the sheriff? Okay, that's one question. Okay. Who's paying for all this? Is it taxes? Taxes just went up. People are going to be concerned about taxes. Okay, that's a second question, I guess. I don't know. Or means
That's the department that does it. It's right back there. And their staff does it.
I'm sorry.
So it'd be the Department of Planning and Development. This would be a resource that would guide some of everything that we talked about in terms of the framework for guiding development in the future. But again, it's not an ordinance. So it's recommendations and the like.
Okay. So who's monitoring though?
Who's monitoring the implementation? So that would be, it's evaluated against every petition is evaluated or will be evaluated against this document. Or as they are right now, they're evaluated against the 2030.
Okay.
In conjunction with some other factors.
Who's doing it?
It's a combination. First staff does a staff report, and then the Zoning Board of Appeals looks at it, and they're a recommending body, and then that recommendation goes to the county board, and the county board votes on it.
Does this, the new regulations for new constructions, are they being put on with this DEI, the 15-minute cities? Is there going to have to be a urinal in every women's bathroom in a restaurant that breaks ground and builds, you know, a new Chili's? Okay, now you have to, if you have a new build, you know, this is happening with other things like no gas lines, just electric, and no gas appliances, and it's just this sounds like it's from, with the climate change, all these buzzwords from the WEF, the World Economic Forum. A lot of these things are hitting nerves because of, so the diversity. Okay, wait.
If you could wind down.
I will. Okay. Yeah, that's like, okay. I guess that's it. So there's already laws already there, and diversity, equity, all that business. I'm a second generation sharpener. I'm about the only one in Illinois, a woman that has a full service shop. I also do small engine repair. I'm different. I trained with my dad for 10 years, and I'm on my own now. So it's like I get diversity, but you prove yourself, and people will come back to you. Or, I write them on my dad's. I kind of write on my dad's coattails because there is some little thing about, you don't look like a sharpener. What are you doing with saw blades or chains or this or that? I say I'm a second generation. I get respect like that. I respect my dad and thank God that I had him to train me and stuff. And I miss him, and that's all I have. Okay.
Very good.
Is that, are you allowed to refute that? I mean, you're supposed to say.
Would anyone else like to make a comment? Well, thank you for everyone that came out tonight. We really appreciate it. We will take into consideration your comments. If you have further specific questions, address them to the county board, the PED committee, or the county board at large. And they will be taken into consideration. At this time, the commission itself will have a discussion and decide whether to send this forward to PED. It is now open to the commission to make comments or to discuss the issue.
I only have one comment at this time. It's very small. It is a change on page 75. You have it listed as a 15-minute city. It should be probably neighborhood or community, as opposed to particularly a city, because you have cities and you have villages and you have unincorporated and you have this and that. So if you can do that sign, that's an easy one. There are other parts that we need to look at closer a little bit. It's do it one more time and decide what it is we want to follow. We've gotten a number of written comments that we will always also look at. Those will go to P&D, and then they will look at it and do what they need to do and send that forward to the county, and then there goes 30-day review. So when you say, when is it going to go to the county board for a vote, that's up to the county to when they're finished with it. It's just, we're finished with this part, and I think we've worked. I want to thank all the board members again. With our outreach, we were at the county fair for all 5 days and did a lot of outreach and getting information from people even at that. So it wasn't just a notice in the paper, or it wasn't just because when we have meetings, we have to notice them up. That's all the legal stuff that you have to do. So if you didn't hear it or understand it, I'm not going to apologize. I'm just saying it's part of the system the way it is now, and then maybe one day in the future we can put it in our plan, somebody's plan, that we deal with that differently. But those are, when you ever see ILCS, Illinois Comprehensive, whatever it is, I don't even remember anymore. Those are the things that we have to abide by. So if it says you got to make notice 15 days, you got to make notice 15 days. It's not up to this board to make sure. It is maybe up to the county, but the county has to decide whether to send letters out to everybody saying, hey, we do that with all the zoning board stuff, but that's only with the people who are adjacent to property that is being affected. And if you haven't had a chance to read the whole thing, again, like I said at the beginning, when I still had a voice, it works. I understand second generation. I'm second generation, and Charlie and I are of an age where there were a lot of other things that we talked about that are different now. Some the same, and we just call it something different. So it's all going to get done. It's all going to get washed out, and the county board has the final say. So thank you for coming, particularly. Thank you for all of you who had something to say. And I quit now.
One of the weird things we did is at the county fair last year, we had these little mason jars out and gave everybody who stopped at the booth 3 beans and asked them to put them in the jar that represented the 3 areas that they thought were most important for future land use for the county. I've got industrial in front of me, multifamily is here, green space and agriculture are down the line with a lot more beans in it than mine.
Open space is the biggest.
Open space is the biggest one. So that was part of our outreach. This is the first time a plan has ever had a booth at the county fair to try to reach a broader audience. But in any case, if there are no other comments from the commission, I would entertain a motion to send this for further review to the county PED committee.
So are the comments being included along with that?
Yes, all comments will be included.
So moved.
So moved by Michelle, second?
Second by me.
Okay, now we'll take a roll call vote.
Do we want to have any other discussion?
Any other discussion?
No other discussion from us? Thank you.
Okay, roll call. Burton System is not present. Patricia Grant?
Yes.
Ellie Salazar?
Yes.
Garrett Anderson has left. Terry Moy?
Yes.
Michelle Femius?
Yes.
Taylor Johnson?
Yes.
Randy Zaleski?
Yep.
Nancy Glissman?
Yes.
And Mary Donner?
Yes, sir.
And I will vote yes. So this will go with unanimous of the voting members who are present. Thank you all. At this point, the commission is adjourned for the evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.